Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. We're here for the Angel Face Halloween special. We're back with Suzanne. This is our second year doing this. I'm excited. Suzanne, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, I'm Suzanne, and I'm a Ceremony Reiki Master and an Animal Reiki Master and a hospitality coordinator at a very fine restaurant here in Boston.
Amazing. Thank you for doing this with me. We just wanted to come and do some fun little spooky stories, talk about Halloween and get in the Halloween spirit. If you're listening to this when it comes out, today is Halloween. We're recording this on Mischief Night. It's the night before Halloween, and I'm excited. Um, let's let's get started. So, for those listening, this is Angel Face Magic Hour. I'm your host, Grace Lannon, and we're here with Suzanne. Um, this summer, Suzanne and I got to finally meet in person, and we've been, I don't know, talking on virtual for what, maybe 5 years now or something,
Since 2019.
since 2019. And so we got to finally meet in person, and so that was really exciting. And we took a trip to Salem. I went this summer to Massachusetts, which is where I grew up, to visit my family. And I went to Connecticut and got to see my grandmother. And then when I was in Boston, we got to meet. So we got to go to Salem, which I'm sure a lot of people know. There is a history with witches there, but now there's like all sorts of different, I don't know, like spiritual businesses and stuff like that. So we just got to kind of go explore a little bit. But how many times have you been to Salem, Suzanne? Probably a lot.
In this life, honestly, probably like a dozen times, three in this year alone.
Oh,
But
whoa.
but I hadn't gone for years and years and years until like the last 5 years, and it's the same, but it's different.
Yeah. Yeah, I went in high school, I think maybe 2 or 3 times, and went to like the witch museum, which we went to, and just like explore all the little shops and stuff. But I thought it was a cool experience to be able to go, I guess, from a different perspective now. Like before, I was just going like, oh, this is a cool kind of like tourist attraction. But it's interesting to me to see things through like a yeah, a different lens.
Definitely. And we'll talk about that experience at the Witch Museum because that was different. That was different for me from the last time I was there earlier this year because they added that new section at the end. The extent.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then it's changed over the years at Witch Museum. You and I talked about that while we were there. But it's an interesting place. It's kind of a place for a lot of people to fit in that may not feel like they fit in other places. Everybody fits in Salem. That's what's so fun about it.
Yeah, I feel like especially in Massachusetts, there is a certain kind of ideal type of lifestyle to lead. So I think it's interesting to have that place there where the people can be a little bit more, I guess, open around, oh, I read tarot and things like that. But also just like I think lifestyle too.
Absolutely. Salem is one of those places that it has a funk. Plymouth has it as well. There's this funk energy there. I can't quite put into words, but I feel it every time I'm there. I think it's just the history. It's still hanging around. Um, Salem has it too. And they kind of Boston is right in the middle. So it's really interesting. I would love to go back in time one day to that time and just observe because I don't want to be part of it again, but just to observe
To
and
witness it.
yeah, yep.
Well, I'm sure you could in the astral, but I know what you mean. I think it's like I think also those things can be like almost romanticized too, of like, oh, like the Salem days or like being a witch and things like that, where a lot of it was just people being, yeah, like persecuted for their, well, we learned at the museum, they talked about for their race and their beliefs and stuff like that too, which people didn't really talk about that before. So that was kind of, I think, interesting that they're starting to acknowledge those things. Like we know witches are real, of course, but then there also is like the circumstance of just like, yeah, persecuting people for, yeah, their belief, their race, being a woman, like being a psychic, like all these types of things like throughout time. So it was kind of interesting to go um and see them like acknowledge that a little more than they used to.
I was really surprised by it. So we should probably get into that because people are probably going, what are they talking about?
Yeah, yeah. You'll. How about you tell the story? We went to the museum, and
Yeah,
what happened when we went in there?
we went in. Oh my gosh. So we go in there, and the way it is, they had seats this time. They don't normally have seats. That kind of threw me off a little bit. So they had on each side, almost like set up like a church, if you will. They had
Like
benches,
little bench pew things.
benches on the left. And I even said to you, like in all the years, like I've literally gone to this place for 50 years. 50 years ago, I went. And it's almost exactly the same. They didn't have, you just stood there and you turned around because they have these little vignettes, these scenes all around the room. So you can turn your body, well, if you're standing, a lot easier than if you're sitting. So then each one lights up and they tell the story, and they use the same audio as they had in 1972 or 4, whenever I was there the first time. And it's that, you know, Brahmin, it's not,
Vincent Price sounding type
yeah,
of voice.
they call it the Brahmin accent in Boston. It's almost gone. Like no one has it anymore, but it like old Hollywood talked like that too. And it had that, and even the quality of it was so bad. So you and I walk in, and we're one of the last ones in, and all the pews to the right are filled and all the pews to the left are filled. And there's one bench that's sitting up front and it's completely empty. So we're like, yeah, let's go there. And we sit and we turn and we sit and we're looking, and we're now we're like basically in front of everybody. Like if you're at a church,
Everyone's facing us. We're like on stage, basically.
and we're like, look how, oh my God, this is weird. And you lean in and you go, it's like we're on trial. And I was like, this is wild. It was really bizarre. Because all those people, people could have come and sat with us. Nope, it was just you and me looking at everybody looking at us. So it was like we were on trial. It was so interesting. And so they start with the audio and the whole story, the witches and the creepy mannequin people that are in these scenes. And the one thing I did say to you, they do have a devil that they added. I don't know when they added it. They added a whole visual of the devil, which I thought was really strange. Like, they talk about it in the audio, but like, I don't know. I think there's so many little kids that come through there. Like, to have a visual like that is, in my opinion, not okay. Like, I just don't think it's necessary. Because the little kids are so impressionable. You know what I mean? Like, leave with that imprint on their head. I don't like that at all. And so we watched this whole thing. It was very interesting, wasn't it?
Yeah, they tell like the whole story of like the witch trials. I'm sure you guys learned about it in like middle school or high school or whatever. But they talk about like the different kind of characters that we learned about in history. And some of them mostly were like hung, but then they also had people that were like crushed and just like different ways that they were killed. And they like the part that I felt like affected me the most was watching that. I forget who it was, but that one guy, they crushed him to death. And I was like,
Giles Corey.
that was intense.
Giles Corey, and that's who my brother was, and they did the Crucible in high school, like in the 70s, and that was his character, which I think is so interesting. But yeah, they crushed him, and that was one of the scenes. They had a jail scene. They had a scene with the girls with Tituba. they had the hanging scene of all them hanging. They had, of course, the courtroom scene. And then they have the big, uh, the circle on the floor
Yeah.
that lit up. That was always there as well. But then they added the devil, which I was like, okay, that's a little much.
Well, I feel like it also makes it almost like it is kind of cheesy anyway because it's like these animatronics, but then it makes it like this like supernatural thing where it it's like history too. Like I feel like they don't need to add like this demon figure for us to understand what we're seeing.
exactly, exactly. Because
It
honestly,
makes it like camp, you know?
it did, and because it was a hysteria. It was people were wrongly accused of being themselves, you know, that they were doing other things that I don't believe they were doing. Um, and it was you and I were like sick to our stomach
I
throughout.
felt really uncomfortable in there,
So
like physically in my body.
very much so. Yes, yes. Every time I go in that, I do. So when it
Like
ended,
almost like a type of feeling.
yes.
That's a
Um,
vortex for anyone who's just listening and not watching the video.
the trauma imprint on the soul was definitely triggered.
Yeah, and I definitely feel I know you like have some past life memories, and I think a lot of people, I'm sure, do around either the witch trials or also in England and all of Europe, but just there's so much trauma there. I feel like that still affects us in like the way that we almost like still have this like puritanical society like that's like especially in the East Coast. Um, I feel a lot moving in my throat.
Yes, right. Your throat chakra's acting up when you're talking about it. So when it was over, they sent us to the gift shop, which was very fun. But then there was a second
I'm
part.
wearing my little Salem pin that I got. It's a witch hat
Oh, that's so
at the
cute.
gift shop.
Um, so then there's a second part. And I said to you, what's the second part? I've never had the second part. I have no idea what this is. And we went into a whole new thing about the history of the witch. And it started with the medicine women of Europe, right? That the holistic healers.
Yeah, I think it was like Italian and Scottish or something. I forget.
Yeah, a German white witch and maybe a Scottish one.
I definitely remember a Scottish. Ooh,
Yeah, and you know what?
I almost stopped. I can't remember.
The Scottish witch hysteria was so much worse than it was here. Like I have a friend from Scotland who told me about it. It was bad. It was really, really bad. So it went through and it kind of gave the history of, what is a witch? Are you a witch? And you see these two, and then they got into Hollywood, and I thought that was so interesting because remember that was the witch on the broom, and I just kept taking
Mhm.
pictures of it, and I said, "Is its head
It
turning?"
looked like it was moving. I swear. You'll have to send me those pictures. It was very, very weird. And, of course, I always try to be skeptical of things on like the light, but we were trying to like recreate it and we couldn't recreate it. So I was like, that was kind of weird.
And
But
I
it
felt
was from the Wizard of Oz, like that green, what's her name? The Wicked Witch.
of the West, and they said that they turned her green for the movie because they
Mm-hmm.
wanted color, and so I was like, "Oh, it's Hollywood. Of course, it's Hollywood again."
Just showing off the Technicolor because
Yeah,
the Wizard of Oz was one of the first. I don't know if it was the first, but it was one of the first color films.
and so that was kind of not cool for witches because now you're green, scary. And then I'm trying to think. I have pictures of that.
There was a whole like timeline of kind of like things in history, and they talk about like Jesus and all the way up to like more so like witch hunts of today, talking about like communism and the Red Scare, and there's so much that has happened um historically. So they kind of talked about that, like, and how those things create fear, and then that creates the scapegoat. So like the witch is like only one, of many scapegoats, but it's easy, I think, when spirituality or like some kind of like control over another comes to play, then people like are so scared because they don't know what is the truth, and they might believe, oh, this person can like turn me into a toad, when they're probably just like making like teas to like help you with like your period cramps or something.
So yeah, it was fear plus trigger equals scapegoat. And
Yeah.
gave so it
And they
gave
talked about the AIDS crisis.
so for the witch trials, it was the fear was God and devil. The trigger was Dr. Griggs, and the scapegoat was 150 accused townspeople. Then it was Japan was the fear, trigger was Pearl Harbor, scapegoat was Japanese Americans. Remember what that?
With
Yeah.
the internment camps.
Ugh. Fear, communism. The trigger was McCarthyism, and then the scapegoat was the blacklist.
And that was like all like the people, like actors and stuff.
Yep. And then the last one was fear was infection, the trigger was AIDS, and the scapegoat was the gay community. So it said there was like modern day witch hunts. So I really felt like there was some like the circle was closed. There was some healing, there was some balance, there's something was brought back in after all this time to kind of
And they
create.
talked about like the medicine wheel and like the Wiccans and stuff, like kind of
Yeah,
like positive portrayals of witches too. I both of us were saying we felt a lot better when we went to the second part. Like the first part was like so uncomfortable, and then we were like, oh, this is different. Like this feels a lot more open.
it was very, very interesting. And I was really happy that that was added. Like I was really surprised, but happy. So it feels like balance is restored.
Yeah. Yeah, and then we went to the memorials of a lot of the, is it all? I don't know,
Yeah,
but a
there's
bunch of
nothing.
people that were killed.
It's the there was the night. I think it was 19 that was killed. Um, and there's a big park next to the graveyard, and each little granite bench had a name and the date that they were hung. I don't think they burned any. I think all they
I
lost.
don't think in Massachusetts, I don't think they did. I think that's
Uh,
more England, but I could be wrong. I'm not an historian. I'm a
and we
psychic
walked through
medium.
and we reikied every single one together. It was really awesome. That
It
was
felt very good to me to do. It felt like nice to just acknowledge those people and their experience, and like I feel like that was healing for me as well. Like whether or not I existed in that time, like I know like my ancestry and stuff is connected, but like I think it's also the metaphor of how those persecution and like punishment energies, like we were just talking about before, um still affect us.
oh yeah, they're imprinted. Like that's the thing. Like the stuff is imprinted in our souls, and then whatever we get from our parents is imprinted in our DNA, and we got to get it out because it causes problems, disease, and
Yeah, physical,
it expresses itself.
emotional, spiritual.
Um,
It's like I think it also doesn't allow us to thrive and like be witness and be seen because we're like scared to share, oh, that something as simple as like, oh, I do tarot cards. Like a lot of people are scared to even say that because they're scared of what people will do or think to them, and that's a real thing for a lot of people, depending on, who surrounds them. They might actually be really upset about it, but it also makes me sad because it's like we can't allow the past to make us stay in that like hidden.
Yes, right. And that's, you know, being comfortable with who you are, and it really can set yourself free and not allowing. And when I worked at the fitness center, the fitness club, I would clear, I mean, this is in the last 6 months, I would clear the manager's office once a month at the first of every month. That was like my deal with him. I had his permission to do it. I didn't have to talk to anybody about it. If he wasn't there, I went in, I did it. That was our deal. Somebody saw me doing it and was like, she's a witch. Like, it was so weird. And they were all upset about it. But it was honestly none of their business. They had no business, you know, following me down there, no business watching me, no business stepping away and saying something to somebody. It really bothered them because of their religion and where she comes from culturally and things like that. But that's her journey, because I don't even know her name. And
Yeah, it's like not our responsibility to like change people's mind. But it's also like to be into whatever your spiritual practice is, it's not religion. It's not like you're trying to I can't say that word, proselytize and like whatever, like convert people. Or it's just like I literally am just like doing my thing.
yeah, I just go and do my thing. I didn't say anything. And you know what? You know, that was that. It never came up again. But in another time, I paused for a moment and I
Yeah,
thought,
you be
in another time, yeah, DED. I would have been dragged out of there, thrown in a cell, and left in my pee for about 3 weeks, and then burned at the stake. I would have
yeah,
sucked.
and it's like you couldn't even in those times it's like women couldn't even like talk openly about certain things. So I think it's like it's scary to think about. And it's not even that long ago, too, where like we we couldn't even have like credit cards and shit.
Right. And you know, everybody has their own perspective um, of things. And to project onto others with your perspective is a really slippery slope. And, you know, if we all just respected each other's perspective, but didn't project them on each other, we'd have a much more peaceful planet. You
Yeah.
know, and you'd think we learned from history. You would think we would learn from history. But it's, you know, it's up to us as individuals to just take care of your own shit. You take care of your own shit.
And
Every,
that's a ripple effect. Like the more
yep.
that we can heal and like show up and be ourselves, like that can help the world. But it's very frustrating to see because I'm like, yo, like we've done this like 20,000 times. Like, why do we have to keep doing this bullshit? But
Yeah,
I guess I
that's
don't know.
another
I
podcast.
decided to sign up for this or something.
So we went to the Bewitched. So after that, well, before that, we went to the Bewitched statue, which is very cute. Um, we went to the Vamp store, remember?
Like yeah, like the goth store.
Loved that. I'm just looking at pictures from that day. We got our necklaces. I got Vamp. I'm wearing mine tomorrow to the restaurant for Halloween. You got,
I got a witch necklace and I wore it Friday when I dressed up as a witch. So
how lucky are
I
you?
wear it all the time anyway, just for regular
Right.
life.
Just think about that. There was a time like if you walked around with that on,
No, I still think about it.
like
Like
this,
today, like
why?
at work, like I wouldn't wear it to work at the spa, not because my boss or anyone that works there would be like, what the heck? But I don't, but I still know there are people out there who'd be freaked out by that. Little did they know I'm really a witch. But it's like I still think about that. Or like I have a lot of different necklaces with like Mother Mary and stuff, and then sometimes I'm like, I don't necessarily wear it to certain things because I don't want people to get the wrong impression of.
Yeah, and that's their own twisted little head.
Yeah, and
Right.
I don't need to do that. I can say now that I can let that go. Like, but I still think about that. So it's like thinking about in in more extreme situations. Like it's
So
kind of
yeah,
scary still.
so we got our vamp necklaces. We did not go to the Hocus Pocus house. We didn't have time. Um,
But we did go out to eat at the, what was it called? The tavern place.
oh, I took you to, oh, we went to I have a picture of our drinks. Um,
It
it,
was like one of the women that was in the tr witch trials. She worked there, like in that building, whatever,
yeah,
back in the day.
yeah, it was actually Bridget Bishop,
Bridget Bishop, yeah.
yours truly. Um, Mercy Tavern.
Mercy.
Mercy Tavern, and that's right. That's where we went and had a drink and had some lunch, and it was really fun. It was a good day. It was a beautiful day out too. It was a really good. Yeah, I'll send you a picture, and you can use one of them for
Oh yeah, please do.
use it for your podcast.
Yeah, please
Um,
do.
so yeah, Salem is a really interesting place. We went into that. Remember, there was a lady doing readings, and you were like, "You wanna?" And you're like, "No." They're like, there's different vibes there.
It's I don't
Some of
want to
it's
be
too dark,
mean.
low vibe for me. So
It
there's a lot
feels
of
a little magician like Chris Angel, my freak, like kind of like I don't know, cheesy to me.
yeah, yeah.
Like I'm sure that some of those I'm not saying that they're scams or not legitimate. It's just like I feel like a parlor game kind of thing. Like you're putting on a show
Yeah.
rather than like being, authentic. Because I think people that go to get readings there, they're not necessarily, they're just kind of wanting to see what it's like. Um, which can get a lot of people in the door. They can start to see something, experience something. I don't think that's bad, but it's kind of like, I don't know, like
For the tourists.
Vegas Strip or
Yeah.
something.
New Orleans. Like
Yeah.
in New Orleans, there's that square, I forget what it's called. And there's people there that sit with tables and do readings. And I went in the late 90s. And they have, the guy with the big giant turban and the feathers, and he's got a name, and he's all like decked out. And there's all,
Fortune telling.
yeah, there's all. And there was this one girl who just sat there at a table, really low key. And I was like, that's who I want to get my reading from. And boy, did she ever give me, she gave me the reading of my life. Told me what was going to happen the next 2 years of my life. And it all happened. It was crazy. That's another day. But yeah, so yeah, there's definitely a showy. I don't know how good they are and how good they're not. I've had a readings there. I got my tea leaves done there once. It was good. And I can read tea leaves, so I could see things. I was like working with him, like, oh, look at this and look at that. What do you see? And it was fun.
Yeah, and
But
I think sometimes you need that. Like it can be just like fun.
for entertainment purposes only.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
That's what I do. Entertainment purposes
Purposes
only,
only.
Mr. Guy at the IRS.
So let's talk about some ghosts.
Yes, I'd love to hear. You were telling me somewhat recently, I don't have a good concept of time, but there was some spirits that were in your home.
There was a
Maybe you can
commotion.
tell us about that and tell us about kind of what you were doing to try to help them.
So my son recorded it. We have a guest room in the lower level, and he went down there to sleep and got woken up at 3 a.m. to clamoring. Like, I sent you the video. The cats were in there. You can see orbs coming out. It was all coming. It was all attracted to the electric outlet, which, of course, because it's energy, right? That's where they go. Um, And it was really loud, like somebody's in the walls banging around. It was so strange. So we heard it a couple more times after that. And I decided that I needed to try and get it out. So I went down with my husband, and he's a Karuna Reiki master. So we did like a spirit detachment that we would do like on a person in Karuna Reiki. We did it with the walls. So he got on one side of the room of the wall, and I got on the other side of the room. We were in two different rooms on each side of the wall. And we did an extraction, and it felt okay. But I had someone clear the house a couple weeks later, and they told me that there were two traumatized souls trapped in the wall that I think were attracted to the energy of the house because of the work that I do. It's not the first time it's happened. I've had spirits come through. I did an online Reiki session back in 2020 with a woman who said, I had two relatives show up in my meditation when we were meditating. I was taking her through a Reiki meditation. She said they came to my door, but they turned into cats. And I told them to leave because she didn't like these people.
Mm.
And she said I started blowing at them to get rid of them. Meanwhile, my cats broke into my Reiki room while I was doing Reiki over the
The
phone.
cats.
And I'm blowing at them. She doesn't know this, to get out of there. I'm like blowing at them. And one of them came back after. So I did an extraction on him. He sat on my Reiki table. They're not even allowed in that room. He sat on the table, put some crystals around him. I did an extraction on him. Off he went. Later that night, like probably 5 a.m. actually the next morning, I felt like someone kneed the end of my bed and shook it. So it was
Oh, with their knees, not like a cat.
no, yeah, like a knee, like somebody standing at the end of my bed and like hit it to wake me up.
Mm.
And I immediately said, you know what, you let me sleep. I'll deal with you tomorrow. So I took the other cat. It wasn't the cat, but I just used the cat because I think they used the cat, and I got rid of them. So I think that, the light attracts people, earthbound spirit, maybe. So what's the other ghost? And then
Do you think they're more like like connected to the home and the land, or you?
all of it. I think all of it. I think stuff is attracted to it. In my old house, I had a shaman clear it for me once. And she said that there was so much spirit in the walls like in the basement, between the foundation and the walls. Like if you opened up a closet and you looked, you could see between the foundation and the walls. And I used to sage so much. Like I didn't really know what I was doing. And then I had a babysitter that would be like, she'd come home and she'd say, there's a guy sitting in your dining room all night long. She's right there in his chair. She would tell me what he was wearing. She could see him, but he was spirit.
Mm.
She would go down in the basement with the kids, like, 'cause there was it was finished basement, and they all saw something one night. So they would see it, but she would say to me, you come home and everything backs off. So this shaman said, she said, I don't know why this is happening where you live. If it's your house, I think you're like a lighthouse, and it's attracted there as a way to get out, I guess, to get to
Well,
leave.
I think sometimes at least in my opinion, I think sometimes they see like that energy, like healing light, and it's like confusing. It's like moths, like they
Yes.
like are like
Yep.
go into like a glass door because they don't understand where they're going. I
And then
think
the
that
land
when
too.
people are like confused or like traumatized, like they're
Yep.
like they don't know where to go.
And the land too.
Yeah.
Um, the land that the old house was on was like conservation land forever. And then they built houses on it like 20 years ago. one morning, my son, he used to see spirit all the time when he was little. He doesn't anymore, but he would see it in my house. He would describe what people were wearing. I was never afraid of it though. I remember one morning he was looking out the front door. He's like, "Hello, there's a guy walking across our walkway." And then I go, "What?" He goes, "Oh, never mind. He's kind of transparent." I think he's a real person. Like that's
Is
what it
this your son? So you have two sons, but is this your son that was past tense terrified of Halloween? Or is this other son?
Yes, it was him. Like he wouldn't go into spirit store. Do you know he would just went into a spirit last Halloween for the first time in his life, and he's almost 21. He was 20 years old or 19. I have the picture. And what's crazy, I showed you the picture, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like one of those creepy animatronic things standing behind him. He took a selfie and it looks like the Exorcist, the girl from the Exorcist almost. And I think it's so funny because that picture says so much to me. But yeah, he would stand outside of spirit when he was like 6 and wait for me and David. But
Yeah,
that's
so
hard too because he was so
sensitive.
little. Oh my God. He couldn't go to Michael's. If I brought him in there at Christmas, he'd go, "You sure? There's no Halloween stuff." And I'd go, "It's Christmas." And we'd
Don't go
walk
in the clearance section.
to where we walked by and everything went off and he would be like, "Ma," and he'd scream. We went to CVS
Oh my
once.
God.
He's left screaming, "Get out."
That's so interesting.
It's past life, something terrorized
Yeah.
shit out of him for sure. Absolutely. So yeah, it's so interesting because I just think spirit, like ghosts and things, like I've had a lot of experience at the Mount Washington Hotel. That's a really interesting one. Drew had an experience there as well with me. We were actually in the same room. Like somebody grabbed our feet in the morning, our toes. Someone grabbed my toe and squeezed it. And someone grabbed his foot, his ankle or something under the covers. There's a lot of history there. I spent a weekend there with a friend, and we got up there, and ironically, the paranormal guys from Rhode Island were there doing this whole conference,
Oh,
the
really?
ghost hunting and everything. And I said to her, "How the heck did we end up here?" Because we were there doing our own ghost hunting.
And of
Um,
course you're there because the activity, I'm sure, was like crazy because they were like provoking it
it was wild, but
and like investigating.
that building has a lot of granite in it, and granite holds energy. And I think that's one of the reasons why there's so much activity there because it just is
Mm.
almost stuck there on repeat. So I think in some cases, paranormal stuff is just another dimension because time is, all playing out at the same time. It just, the veils are thin. I don't know. Like,
I think, yes, sometimes it's like residual energy. I
yeah,
think like when you go into a room after like someone was fighting, you like feel like, oh, it's weird in here. Like you can feel that energy. So I feel like if it's something that's happening on repeat for years and years and years, then it can almost get like implanted in the
yeah.
time
Yeah.
matrix. I don't even know what to call
And you know
that.
what? That's exactly what those guys from Rhode Island, they went to the room of the woman because the story is the woman, the Stickneys, they built the hotel. He built it for her to entertain their friends. It took 3 years. As soon as he built it, he died. And then she ended up marrying a French prince. So then she would travel from New Hampshire to Paris a lot. And the guys from Rhode Island, they say that her room is haunted by her because she had a room with her bed in it. I think her bed is still there. Um, and they called it residual energy because it was almost on repeat. You could hear
Yeah,
a
it's
voice.
like a loop is how I
Yeah.
see it, like an old tape deck, and it just like plays this song and you have to turn it around. Like it's like it just plays the same thing over and over and over again. Like what we were talking about earlier with the music at your job.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm trying to think what's the other. I really feel a lot. I don't know if you've ever been. Have you ever been to the Mount Washington Hotel?
Is it in Boston or where is it?
Up in New Hampshire.
No.
One of those big grand hotels with the red roof, those, it's almost like the Dell
Is it
Cornell.
like for like skiing and stuff?
You can go there all year round. There's a cog railroad there. It's actually fun if you've never been. It's a fun weekend to do. It's fun in the summer too. Beautiful. Um, really interesting property. I had
I
such
feel like hotels too, it's like so many people are in there too. It's like all their energy and like expectations and like all that shit.
I
It's
really wish
very weird.
I really wish people could understand energy better, because you don't see it doesn't mean it's not there.
Yeah, I mean like like I always give this example, but it's like we're literally interfacing right now through this technological device. We cannot see the internet, but it's still like creating this portal.
Okay.
So I see like a spiritual energy like the same way. It's like like coded. I'm, I don't know.
And I walk in the woods a lot, and people will walk by you and you can smell their perfume, but then you can smell it for another 600 feet. Like that's their energy. And that's the way try to explain it to people to get them to understand, like, when
Yeah.
someone walks through a room, you can still smell their perfume. Well, that's their energy hanging. Their energy is attached to that. Like that's an example of how energy, you can almost turn energy into a physical thing by smelling that perfume. You can uh, understand it better. But it really does affect us. And I just wish people would understand that better, because I think that's kind of like code cracking, into
Yeah.
things on a different level.
And I think like being able to see like the difference between these things is not like easy to be like, oh, there's a ghost in my house versus like an energy imprint. Like it doesn't necessarily even matter if it's affecting you, like knowing how you can like move that energy. But I think there's a difference that I just want people to understand. And I know you know this, but like a difference between a spirit, like a ghost, like this trapped energy or the imprint, and like a spirit, like a spirit guide or like your loved one, like they can come into our dimension and like connect with us, but it's not like they're necessarily like in the room where they died in forever. Like
Yeah,
we don't
no.
want that. We want them to be able to move in and out.
Yeah, and they leave this body is it's our flesh suit. But when we leave it, we're still there. We're just not in this physical body. My dad has passed, and he is always around me. Whenever it's funny, I get my cards read by this lady, and she'll say, "Right there." I go, "He's right here on my right shoulder, isn't he?" And she's like, "He is right there." I know when he's around. She said he leaves the cupboards open when he's around, things like that. But I sense him around me a lot lately.
The
And I
coins, that's what I hear.
Oh,
Does he leave coins?
yeah, he probably does, because I get coins like on the counter,
I just
and
hear the coins.
he probably does, because whenever I see coins, because who has coins? Like nobody has coins now. No one's using coins. So I know I'm not.
I
Uh,
have like a bag of coins like that. Like I just collect, never get to use.
so like when coins show up, I'm always like, oh, it must be dad. Like I do say that. But also too, I did see a ghost. Like I for the very first time. I don't think I've ever seen one, not any other time that I was aware of. Anyway, um, just recently, turning down the street, I was with John in the car. He saw it too. That's how I knew it wasn't nothing. We turned down the street, and we live in an area that's um, woodsy, historical, so it's quiet. There aren't a lot of cars. And so we turned down the road, and there was this mist, and there was a river running on one side, big North River. And coming from the North River side, there was this mist we noticed. I didn't know, neither of us said anything till after. We turn down the street and we see all the mist. And then I saw what looked like a female in this big, billowy gown with a big like train. There was a lot, and there was a lot of fluff. I
Was
don't
it a
know.
wedding dress?
Maybe
I don't know why I said that, but
moved across the street while we were driving down the street. The headlights were on it. And then as we drove by where it crossed the street, there was still more, the mist had like was still following it. Like it wasn't in the street anymore. We didn't say a word to each other. But as soon as I looked and saw the mist, I said, "Did you just see what I saw?" And he said, "I didn't even think it. I thought my eye didn't even think that was real. You saw it too?" And I'm like, "What did you see?" And he described to me exactly what I just said to you. And I was like, "Holy shit, we just saw a ghost." I thought I'd be scared, but I'm not.
and for added context, he just got eye surgery somewhat recently, so his eyes are sharp. They're You guys aren't like seeing things like you're seeing it with your physical eyes. Like I think I have only had maybe two or three experiences where I've seen a physical body. Suzanne knows, and I've talked about it on the podcast too. I see a lot of like ships and like or extraterrestrial things, orbs and things like that. But I've only seen like a human form, I think like a few times. And one of them I remember was when I was, I don't know, maybe like 14 or something like that. But it was like at night and I was walking home. I live like super close to the high school that I went to. I was like walking home and it was like dusk or whatever. And I remember in front of someone's house, I just saw like feet stepping, but it was just the feet and then like socks. And I remember they were like brown boots. Like they didn't look like super old or anything, but it wasn't like sneakers, but they were like brown boots and then some kind of I forget what color it was, but some kind of socks. And I saw it like just from the corner of my eye. I'm like walking, and then I like see something in the corner of my eye, and then I turned towards it and I saw it, but it was just like a second. And then I was like rubbing my eyes, like, what the heck? Because I thought maybe there was someone there, and I just like the sun was in my eye or something. But then it was gone. There was no one in front of the house. It was very weird.
When was that?
I think I was like 14 or 15. Like I was like in high school. So 2000 something. I don't know.
Um,
A long ass while ago.
and what was the other time?
I remember, I think this was more recently, maybe like 2017, 2018, something like that. It was after I did my Reiki training. I remember that. Um, I had done like my Reiki one, I think, and I was walking in this trail. Um, it's not like super woodsy, but like a little bit more secluded. But there are like these picnic benches throughout the trail so people can like sit there. So sometimes I'll see people sitting there just like smoking a joint or something, like or like writing, like people will hang out there. So I saw someone sitting and I thought it was just like someone like hanging out, like looking down at their phone or something. But it was just like the shape of it looked like someone with a hoodie on. But it was like I thought it looked like they were wearing a purple hoodie, but I like went to like I'm trying to be alone, so I'm like hi, like like I don't want to chat with people on my walk, so I'm just like hello, and I like went to like wave and like awkwardly say hi as I pass him, but then there was nothing there.
Ooh.
It was weird. It just looked like it could have been, like oh, it's all these things. I'm like, it could be anything. So, but the feeling that I received when I saw it made it feel more real to me. Like I felt cold, like chills, like when I feel a spirit around me, whether it's like a mediumship, like the energy's coming in towards me, or like that physical being. I feel a shift in I don't know how to explain it in words, but I know you understand. I'm sure a lot of people listening too understand, but it's like a shift in the energy that surrounds me where I feel like I'm going into like another, yeah, dimensional space. But this was that place is interesting because like I remember years ago when I got this amazing reading when I first met like my psychic mentor. I got a reading with her and it was like crazy profound. Like I did all this, I was like crying the whole time. And like I remember after that, I walked in that same trail. This was before I saw this spirit, like maybe a year before. But I was walking and this vulture went like so close to me. I screamed. I was like, and I felt like it was like the fear that we discuss in the reading and stuff, that it was a lot of past lives that we were talking about. I was like releasing the fear, like something physical had to happen. I saw this vulture and it like went, it was so close to me, Suzanne. Like it was really scary.
Culture.
Yeah, a vulture, which like symbolizes so many things like death and like release and like all these, ideas. But it was so close to me and I was gonna go this other way to like walk back to the car, but I got freaked out by the vulture. So I decided to walk down this little side trail and I looked down. A fucking scorpion was in my path and it like brought up its little claw. I screamed so loud because I'm really scared of scorpions. I mean, they're really interesting, cool, but I don't want them like anywhere near me, like crawling on me. I screamed and then I just ran all the way back to my car and I was like freaking the fuck out. And I feel like that was like a way for me to clear that energy because at the time I wasn't so open to letting things go or like understanding what was happening. I was just kind of like getting into all the healing work. And it was really interesting that it was like that same path that, and I'm just thinking about this now that I tell the story, but it was that same path that I saw the scorpion, that I saw this like figure.
Oh, interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah. But I definitely will feel like I'll see like a door open or things like that. My last house definitely had spirits in it, and it was definitely made me depressed. Like they were like sad spirits. I felt really sad when I lived there. One of my friends who is also intuitive, like she was like, yeah, I could tell from the pictures that place was like weird, like because she never went to my house. Um, but there was something off there, and I tried to the same thing. There was this little girl, like stuck in the wall, and I tried to clear it with Reiki. It felt a lot better, but I felt like she didn't want to leave, like she was still there. And then eventually, I felt like it's almost like she attached to me, and once she attached to me, I was able to like release it. But it was like very uncomfortable. Like I think she just wanted help.
Right, right. Well, and they know if you doing what you do that you can
Yeah, I
help
can
them.
see them or feel
I-
them or know them.
There
But
is a
it was interesting. Oop,
there is ghost at the restaurant I work at. I felt it the first week I was there. I have not seen it. Um,
yes.
I've seen stuff like I've been in the office and the post-it notes, there's like a pile of them. One will fall off and hit the desk. And I'm like, nobody else is around. Like, and there's no way I did it. But, you can also talk yourself out of that too. But I've had two people tell me stories and I've heard them from others, these two stories. It was a firehouse. It's in the Leather District in Boston. Um, it was a firehouse. And
I don't know why I always think about like leather daddies, like when I think about district, but I know that's not what it is. But that's what I think of, like
nope,
the where they're going to hang out.
not,
But it's like
not
people
Market
making
Street.
hides and stuff, right?
Yeah,
That's
yes,
what you mean by it?
yes. That's so.
Like the man, like
It's not
like
kink.
sexy man.
It's
That's what
not.
I think of. I don't know why in my mind.
So they think it's a woman. Um, one person has seen her, and two people
Mm,
told me the story, and it's consistent. They said that somebody was down in the basement. The basement there is creepy. I don't like it. It gets a lot of rats, and it gets water,
mm,
and sometimes the rats bring flies. Like if there's a rat in a trap, like it'll bring flies. Like so, like we had flies, rat, water in the basement one night this summer, and it was just I don't like that kind of energy. Um, but I also think it was clearing out. I think that whatever happened was clearing. Anyway, somebody went down the basement. This happened a couple of years ago, came up white. And he said, I just saw a woman with long dark hair down in, like, the way the basement is shaped is really weird too. But he saw a woman with long dark hair, and it scared the crap out of him. Another times, the former manager, who's still part of the organization, told me that she was working late. They had already, all the guests had leave. There was nobody else in the restaurant. Her and a couple people were just getting ready to go. And she heard someone crying. She actually told me this story, and I've heard it from someone else as well. But she told me the story recently, and she's like, I didn't believe in the ghosts at all. And she said, I was standing right where you were standing. And she said, I could hear someone sobbing. And she said it was so clear, and it was coming right from, it was like 3 feet, but she said on the other side of the wall. And she said, I thought it was one of the girls that was still there. So I called out to her, and I was like, are you okay? And she said, I didn't hear anything. And then I guess this person she was looking for was really downstairs getting ready to leave. And she came up, she said, are you okay? Are you all right? I heard you crying. And she's like, I'm not crying. I was downstairs. And she said, I knew in that moment that it was supernatural, and that she said it was so clear. It was crazy. Now, I haven't experienced anything. I don't know if it's just me. I sense
You could
it.
also be like, like you're energetically shielding and like protecting, cleansing yourself, so you might not
Yeah,
even like be affected by it.
that's what I feel. That sometimes when I light, like, I have to light candles and incense. Now, it is drafty there anyway, but I'll light, and it's like someone blows it out sometimes, like things like that. But that could be just the breeze. Who knows? I don't need to know. I put one of my Reiki rocks down there, and I tell them they call her Denise. I'm like, give her
The spirit.
yeah, they gave her a locker. There's a locker down there, and I said, put offerings in there, and I told them just recently, I'm like, put a cigarette in there, like put something in there for her. And often, when was the last
At least
thing?
some water.
Okay, some water.
I don't know.
Um,
That's what I heard.
all right, I'll tell them to put water in there. So they do put things in there. I'm like, just make sure you keep it up.
Yeah, like just a little cup or something,
Mm, mm, mm. That's right. I used
and
to
like
do.
refill it. I have
Is that your lights?
what?
Were your lights dimming or no? Or that just it? It must be just your movement,
Oh,
because
I was like, I don't know.
they're brighter and they're not.
Oh,
So,
it might be just like the video camera. But if once it
so
come through on the video, we're happy to receive that.
yeah. So ghosts are always among us. I mean,
I
and
have
some of us.
one more question about a ghost before we move on.
Okay.
You told me, like, when I went to visit you, you told me about you and your husband. I don't know if he wants to be named, but you guys went and stayed at this hotel in Boston. You were telling me it used to be was it a prison or was it a
Present the Charles
will you
Street.
tell
It's a
us about
jail.
that experience?
Oh, that place. I completely forgot about that. That's where
I
the
was
crazy
thinking about
was.
that when I was thinking about the ghost stories because that kind of freaked me out.
So it's the Liberty Hotel. It used to be the Charles Street Jail. Um, it was a jail for like 170 years. So it's crazy how long it was in a jail. In the 80s, when I was like much younger, I would walk by, like they would hang out the windows and like whistle at you walking down the street. It was crazy. It's right in the middle of, Charles Street, Beacon Hill. It was bizarre. I look back on it now. So it closed, and they turned it into a hotel. They turned part of it into like Mass General, the hospital took part of the property, but then they kept the front. So it's a really cool jail. If you're ever in Boston, you should definitely go check it out.
A really cool hotel.
Cool hotel.
You said jail.
Yeah,
It's not a jail anymore, you guys.
it kind of is. So they kept like the catwalks, so it still looks like a jail. So there's an old part and there's a new part. There is a bar where the old drunk tank, where they used to throw the drunks in. There's a bar there, and then there's restaurants and stuff. So when they had Buddhist monks come in and clear it, and there's a whole little video in the lobby, which is cool. I don't like the lobby bathroom. Every time I go in there, I feel like there's like men lined up along the sinks watching me pee. Like, it's every time I go in there, makes me very uncomfortable. So when we stayed there, gosh, it was like 13 years ago. We had an evening in the bar where the drunk tank was. I was very uncomfortable because I felt somebody was next to me, even though there was nobody next to me. I was literally like, there's a plant next to me. I kept putting my purse on the other side. It was just weird. I kept touching my hair. It was like somebody was too close to me.
You're like back off.
Yeah. And I wasn't into that. I was a little bit into this stuff then, but not as much as I am now. And when I had a friend the next day who was a really good psychic, and she said it was a fat guy. And she said she said he meant no harm. She said he just was so big.
It's taking up space.
He was taking up space. And I did say something to our server when we left, and she said, "Oh, that corner, I don't know what it is about that corner. We just can't seem to get it right. Like, we keep changing it, and I don't know what it is with it." And I was like, "Yeah, I do." So we go and we leave, and we go to our hotel room. So we go up you got to go up the escalator into the lobby of the hotel when you leave the drunk tank bar. And we walked to the elevator. And when you walked from the old section to the new section, I literally felt like it was like a waterfall of energy, I was walking through a whole different thing. It was weird. I've never felt that before. So we go up in our room, and we had a suite. It was a suite. All the lights were on. We had like the late show on. We're drinking champagne, eating strawberries, exchanging our anniversary gifts and cards. And we were in the bedroom, but the lights and all the TV and stuff was still on out in the rest of the suite. And we exchange our gifts, and the lights go off in the bedroom, but not anywhere else in the suite. The TV's still on out there. The lights go off in the bedroom. And I was like, fuck. So I just said, whoever's here, can you just please leave? Like, please leave. I felt like it was a man, and the light went back on, and that was that. But it was really very, very strange. And ever since then, every time I go in that hotel, which is not often, and I do it reluctantly, and I let enough time go by, every time I go in there, I get in an argument with him. Or there's some kind of like hijinks. Something happens. The last time I was in there, we had a wicked argument. And then the next day, the people that were sitting next to us at the bar had taken his phone. He must have gotten up for a second and took a picture. We had pictures of people that taking selfies of themselves on his phone, which I thought was so weird. There's just weird stuff. I just think, this energy can attach.
Did something happen with your purse or your wallet or something?
That was when I was sitting at the drunk bar, and I had it next to me, and I kept putting it on the side where people would sit, where you'd probably put it on the other side. I kept moving it because I was uncomfortable at having it. But yeah, something always happens. I don't like the energy in there. It's an interesting place. I don't know that I would stay there again, just because I just want some peace, But I think too, like moths to light, energy knows who will pay attention to it too.
Definitely.
And like help give them energy. So we have to be really aware. But yeah, that was a fun.
Yeah,
That,
and I think like some, sorry to cut you off. I almost think like things when we think of like demons or like these like negative energies, I feel like it's almost like just some kind of form of energy, and then it feeds off of our emotions. So like it's gonna make you feel like you're fighting for no reason, or like scared, or like have anxiety like when you normally wouldn't. I feel like those things, rather than it being like the devil like in the museum where it's like this creature with horns, like I feel like it's more like siphoning, like something, some kind of worm or something.
definitely. Yeah. So that you higher you vibrate, the less this stuff is going to affect you.
Yeah.
That's what I've been, I guess it's so interesting you said that because I've been thinking about that because with the stuff in the basement, I'm like, why didn't I feel that more? But I do, I think it's the higher you vibrate, the more you, I think you attract that stuff too, the higher you vibrate. But then on the other side, are you not noticing it because you're not, if it's a lower vibrational energy?
You're not like registering it. Or it's like I feel like too when we release fear, those little things that like that might terrify me at a point, like if I saw something or heard something, I'd be like, oh my god, like what's in my like house, like something's trying to get me. But I feel
Right.
like now it's like, oh, there's just some spirit, like you can fuck off.
Exactly. Exactly. Um, because you have to lower when you vibrate really high and something of a lower vibration um, comes to you, be it a person, a situation, you have to lower your vibration to match that. And that's, you don't want to do that. Like
Yeah, and I even think like mediumship, like I love being able to do that, but it's I see it, at least for me, more helpful to imagine like the spirits like coming up and we can connect like through source or through my heart or something, rather than like them coming to me, because I feel like then yeah, I have to drop myself, not because they're bad, but I'm alive and they're not, so they're a little bit lower vibration than
yeah,
us.
yeah,
So I
yeah,
think it's like bringing that energy, like learning how to bring that energy up towards you to do like readings. I feel like that has made it a lot more comfortable for my body, because I feel like before it was like like if I'm seeing like a spirit that died, like I'm feeling like their heart fucking breaking, or like I'm feeling like how the like their problems in my body. Does that make
so
sense?
totally, totally, like that's, you can tell almost how they died, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's, yeah, that's a lot. um but it's important to remember to not lower yourself for any, even if it's not a ghost.
Yeah, any any little bitch.
Totally. You know, I did an experiment over the eclipse weeks with that. We talked about a little bit about it earlier. I was in a bar restaurant, and it was the night of the first eclipse on the 14th, and there were there's a lot of low vibrational energy in there, and I had a really weird night, and I was like, I'm going to be really careful with where I go and who I spend my time with through this eclipse season. And I feel so much better since I did that. Like, you really have to honor your own energy daily. We just,
Yeah. I think even sometimes we're like, oh, I want to do this thing, or this thing sounds really fun, but it's like truly listening to your heart, like would that actually benefit you? Not that you need to like never leave your house, but like I feel like sometimes things bring up more excitement when we're like just thinking about them rather than like us doing it. Like I feel like it
yeah, yeah,
we're sometimes just doing things out of obligation.
yeah. I don't do that anymore. I don't do anything out of obligation.
No moms.
No.
Well, we should probably finish up, but I'd love if you would pull a card for us, and then
I
maybe I'll
have
pull
this.
one too.
They're
A
Halloween.
Halloween Oracle.
They're great cards. I will pull one for the collective. Do you remember our message last year?
Yes, I do.
I gotta get that.
I kind of want to listen back to see what has come up through that. But I do remember we did a talking board. And you guys can go back. I'll link it. I'll link the other episode from last year in the show
I was
notes
so
if
wrong.
people want to watch it. But we did like a talking board reading, and they were like playing with us. They were
So
fucking with
playing with
us.
us.
But
But
didn't
it
your
wasn't,
dad come up?
I don't remember. I
I'd have to
actually,
go back and watch.
that's how I talk to him now. Always talk to him through that board. Like he always meets, it's always him. And then I make him prove to me it's him first. We have a little thing. And we chit chat. Not that I can't chit chat with him otherwise. It's just
It's fun though to see
it is
like
fun.
proof in your mind, you know.
That's the mind, right? Okay. We just okay. I'm gonna pull how many cards for the collective? One?
What do you think? I'm gonna pull one too, but you go first.
Yeah, let's see, each pull one. That's good. These are big, so I gotta like kind of pull one. I love these cards. I did a lot of readings with them last Halloween at a couple parties. Oh, what a great card.
Oh yeah, and send me a pic of the card too so I can look it up close. The apple. Oh, with the heart in it
Card.
too. The
And
hearts always come up for Suzanne. So that's
always apple, risk and reward. I have never seen that card in this deck.
I think too about Eve and like eating the apple and that whole like mythology, kind of going back to what we were talking about at the beginning of the episode, just like with like people's perception of women and also like scapegoating. I think that we should, whether you're a woman or not, but everyone should be proud of the knowledge that we're able to like hold and not like be. I feel like there's still an ingrainment of like a shame when it comes to that mythology. Just even if you're not Christian, it's like America's like throws it in your mind. But that's what
Yeah.
I think about when I see that, like not being afraid of saying what you feel, showing your truth and all those types of things.
All of that just keeps us from evolving to a higher consciousness. But it's all coming to an end.
So it says risk. What does it
Risk
say?
and reward. Apples have been a symbol of, how do you say that? Bad witch. Samhain? Samhain.
Samhain is like the pagan
Yeah.
witch's New Year thing, which is like on
Samhain.
Halloween.
So apples have been which is Halloween. So that's the card I picked. Hello.
Oh, I love that.
Apples, when cut in half, have a seed pattern that looks like a
A
pentagram.
pentacle.
And so the Celts held this fruit to be sacred. Bobbing for apples, a game traditionally played at Halloween, has its origins in the Samhain festival and is one of the oldest associated with this celebration. The traditional way to play is to place 3 or 13 apples into a barrel of water, and the game is to try to bite an apple whilst it floats and bobs in the water. Hands must not be used, and people often compete with each other, bobbing at the same time. It is believed that the Romans brought the custom to Britain, and there are quite a few images recorded through art of this activity in both cultures. It was said that unmarried women who placed the apple they had bobbed under their pillow would dream of their future husband.
Oh.
In Newfoundland and some parts of Ireland today, Halloween is called Snap Apple Night. Candy apples, apple on a stick covered in toffee, although not quite as popular now as they once were as Halloween fare, are now making a comeback as a fun and simple treat to prepare on this night. Please
I
tell
used
me
to
this.
love candy apples as a kid.
I did too. Apples have been an iconic part of mythos from ancient times to modern, to the story of the poisoned apple and Snow White, to the Roman goddess Pomona's magical apple tree, to the Christians' tempting fruit in the Garden of Eden. Should you receive this apple in your reading, finally, it's time to look at how risk plays out in your life. Are you hedging your bets and not trying anything new? Do you want to change but are not willing to change anything? Are you willing to risk to get greater reward? Or alternatively, are you risking too much too often? See the blood on that?
Mhm. You know what's also interesting is maybe months ago now, but I finally just dealt with it. A tree fell in my backyard. It was an apple tree, and the fruit was just rotting, and I was getting stressed out of it because my friend was like, "Oh, the rotting fruit is like gonna bring rats." Like, and so that motivated me to finally like deal with it. But my landlord just came yesterday and they removed the rotting apple tree.
How about that? For timing. That's so interesting. I need to sit with that card a little bit. That whole reading was a lot. Like
I think there's a lot too to think about, like in terms of what the part that stood out to me too is like are you risking or are you risking too much? Like, because I think we can risk in ways that are not healthy. And more in terms of like how we treat ourselves and our bodies and stuff like that. But but at the same time, we're like trapped in fear of like pursuing change, like they said. Like, do you want change?
but you're not willing to
But
change.
yeah, exactly. Get
Yeah.
to it. Pick a number between 1 and 3.
3.
Um, 1, 2, 3. Pick a number between 1 and 5.
3.
Okay. Um, this is the deck that we picked. This is like the aliens alien deck. This one's called the
Oh,
Galactic Heritage cards. They're like different oracle messages to connect with different times, I guess. Just beings, energies. So let's see who wants to come in. These are so many too. It's like hard to shuffle. Knock, knock, bitch. Also, like sound clears energy too. So if anyone's listening, like, and they're scared, like that there is a spirit like in your house and you don't know how to deal with it, whether that's a positive or a negative energy, like doesn't really matter. But if it's causing you fear, then that's stressful. But like, yeah, bells, clapping, like knocking on the walls, like literally like snapping. Like imagine like someone came in your house, like you wouldn't just like be like, kindly please leave. Like you would like make some noise, make some ruckus. Well, Suzanne, you should come back before the end of the year. We can do like a little thing for like the new year.
definitely.
That's what I am thinking about.
Doing
Like
a board. We should
going
do
into,
a board now.
yeah, I would love that. Okay, who wants to come in? Okay, we have a number. It's hot pink. Number 102, if anyone's a numbers person. So the energy that came through is the Essasanis. The mythology with these beings is that they don't have a form. They're formless. Like they don't have a body like an angel or something has like a physical form. Like these, at least in what I have read and like feel, is it's more like a mist, like you said earlier, like or like a collective consciousness. Like it's not just like one body. Um,
So
but the message is for us is alchemy. So how can we like take these negative feeling energies or forms that like might bring us stress or fear, like how can we take that energy and like shift it, transform it so it's like something that we can use and it's not like the curses or the negative thoughts that other people might think about you, whether or not it's like um intentional or not, like those energies can still come towards us. So it's like we're able to alchemize, change, and shift like what is surrounding us. But I see like the Esasani, these beings, um, as a reminder for us that like everything is energy, like we said earlier. So we don't necessarily have to have a physical being in our home for us to feel like energies. So we can use that fear that might come up or like anxiety or stress and change it into something else. Does that make sense?
makes a lot of sense.
It's interesting. So I probably told Suzanne about this and I may have talked about it on the podcast, but I haven't gone in a few months. And it was supposed to be tonight, but the teacher canceled. But I've been going to these meditations called the Stargate meditation. And it's kind of like Reiki where anyone could take a class to like teach the meditation style. But the idea is that you're opening up this ethereal stargate, so like a portal essentially to connect with like loved ones, angels, different guides. But a lot of times these extraterrestrial, interdimensional beings, aliens will come up, and the Esasani came up in one meditation, and I never connected to them before. Until I went to that class, and how I perceived them, it felt like goo. Like there was a show that I used to watch in like middle school called Alex Mack, but it was like this girl who could like turn herself into goo. It was on Nickelodeon and she could like slide through doors or like basically she just became formless so she could like go through the wall or whatever, but it was like this metallic goo and that's what they looked like to me, but they looked pink. And so it's interesting that that's the color on the card. And then there's like this rainbow prism kind of color. But it was cool because when they came in, it felt like how do I explain this? Like someone holding my body like where I have no weight. And it felt like I was able to not exit my body where I'm astral projecting, like I was still inside my body, but it felt like they were like bringing me up into wherever they go, which was kind of interesting because usually when I do the meditations, like that style meditation, I'll imagine them coming and sitting with me. And this was like we were like going up.
Okay.
I'm gonna see if
So
it's
that's interesting that you
okay.
get that card about alchemizing energy, and then I pulled the card about change. Are you willing to change and not? Would you want change but aren't willing to change anything? You have to alchemize everything, and you have to alchemize energy.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
So interesting.
Let's see what it says. So reality is created through our conscious and unconscious thoughts, emotions, and intents. Whether they are aligned, when they are aligned, we become the reality that we prefer, as long as we are following our excitement, which represents the natural flow of the universe. This essential Esasani teaching is a process of alchemy, but it means that we must look at our self-sabotaging behaviors, like too much risk, and confront our shadows, knowing ourselves fully. Only then can we come into a full alignment with our true selves. This card means that it's time for you to take this step. Clean up unfinished business. Be free and embrace synchronicities.
Awesome. Great card.
Beautiful.
Great message.
I love that. Amazing. Feels aligned for me.
Yep.
Well, anything else you want to share before we close out?
Oh, I think we had a nice, sweet Halloween.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah, and I will put links to Suzanne's Instagram if anyone wants to connect for some Reiki. You also teach Reiki, but your schedule is pretty busy right now, so email her or message her. Um, but yeah, I'm really excited for, I think like, even though there's so much heaviness, I feel like at the same time there is an opportunity for change. So I think that if people can recognize where they're afraid to change, that I think that's like the best part to start. Like for me, like I've made so many changes in the last like whatever many years, but there's still parts of me that I'm like scared to like shift in. So I think it's like admitting to yourself, even if it's just inside, and eventually you can start doing stuff about it, but like admitting like this is something that I am stuck in. Like this is my repeating pattern. Like how can I let go?
And and this card says risk and reward, and the universe rewards those who take risks on themselves.
That
So
is very true.
I think the messages we pulled were always perfectly appropriate. And they were so aligned. Like that's so cool. So I love that spirit was here.
I love it. Well, thank you very much and happy Halloween to everyone listening. And we'll see you in the next episode. Bye bye. Happy Halloween.